Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of LunarCrush Live. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Joe. GM to you,
I
since
like
I know we're in the
I like
same
the
time
shirt
zone.
today.
Yeah, I went full lunar. I got the background, I got the shirt. I had to go all in on this one because I'm so excited about Cosmos.
I know I saw the questions that you started adding last night. I was like, I'm never going to be able to catch up to all of the questions that you have added. So,
Yeah, 6 hours or 7 hours, something like that.
cool. So, everyone, today we're going to be joined by Peng Zhong, founder and CEO of Ignite, formerly Tendermint. They just rebranded. We're going to be discussing that, some updates. Learning about the ecosystem. I mean, he's been in the space for a long time, so I'm excited to hear about his history as well. And just a reminder to everyone, we do not take payment for our live streams. We bring on fun, cool, exciting people who have dedicated their lives and careers to the cryptocurrency industry. Make sure you get in there, ask some questions, and hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, good morning. How are you, my man?
Hey, everyone. It's good to be here. Hi, Joe. Hey, John.
Thanks so much for
Good
coming
morning
on.
to you guys.
Yeah. Where so we always like to start the live stream. Where are you in the world, and what's it like there right now?
All right. So I'm traveling right now. Normally I'm on the East Coast, Canada or North America. And right now I'm in Malaysia. So it's in the middle of the night out here. Normally there's a lot of tall buildings back there, but you'll just have to take my word for it that it's not just a black screen.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I've been there. It's been a long time, but beautiful country. I appreciate you staying up late with us. Then that's super cool.
Come here to visit my family. My wife's family's from here, and we haven't been back in over 2 years. So it's just really nice to meet people and see all my nieces and nephews growing up. And yeah, in general, it's been good. But I've been here 5 weeks, so I've adjusted to working at night.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Every single night.
Has it been pretty warm there?
Really warm. Averages around like 90 degrees.
Yeah, and humid.
Wow.
Yeah, very humid.
Yeah, very equator-like.
Was that in Toronto? Is that what you said?
No, Toronto's, I think, still barely into spring right now.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm going back to in a couple of days, I think.
Such an amazing city. Really. I love Toronto.
Great place to be.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about your career and journey into crypto, and kind of what led you here. I'd actually like to hear a little bit about the early days for you. John and I started, 2013, 2015 in that area. I'd love for you to just kind of like reflect back on that time a little bit versus where we are today.
Yeah. All right. So that time, 2013, I may have heard of Bitcoin at the time. But I don't think I invested like most people. I didn't really get into this industry until about 2015 when I was invited to join Tendermint, the previous name of our company, as the first employee. So my background is in design and front-end development, and I was tasked to build, the website for Tendermint, the web application, the wallet, things like that. And that's always been my focus, right? To improve user experience, to make it easier for more and more people to use this tech. And the industry has changed a lot since then, right? It's been about 7 years now, and while working is the same, right? You got this laptop in front of you, you're working with people on Slack, for the last 7 years, but everything around it has changed. You go outside and you see billboards with crypto and NFTs, and you realize how much has changed since long ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, just to think, we used to know, it's almost like you used to know every set or every piece of news that would come out. And it's like everyone in the industry would just like, you just know, like this one thing happened or this other thing happened. And I felt like it was probably like a year ago where like you just completely lost everything. Everyone's, it was like we're building companies in this space, and everyone's like, you didn't hear about this thing? And it was like, no, I didn't. Then that's a massive thing. It's just moving so quickly now, and there's so
exactly.
much adoption.
We definitely reached a point where instead of listening to crypto news, it's more like listening to news about normal companies and then wondering when they're going to implement crypto into one of their products, right? So that's been a massive change over the last year.
I'm so fascinated by, you came in 2015 and your focus is on user experience, and you go back to 2015, the user experience was beyond like terrible, mostly across all of crypto, right? Um, Wallets, I mean, private keys, like remembering the stuff, like unbelievably bad, and it's gotten so much further. I'm so curious, like, what was your perspective coming in? Were you like freaking out, going, "This is just impossible to use. No one's going to use this"? And how do you feel today? Are you happy yet? Do you feel good?
It's a wonderful question, and something I deal with almost on a regular everyday basis, because I still deal with crypto wallets and using DeFi applications, and no, I think we're still a long way from this being easy to use. But in 2015, I think I almost panicked, because at one point, I traveled overseas and had my Bitcoin wallet, and when I landed and opened my wallet and opened my wallet, it said I had 0 Bitcoin, and I wondered at some point, when I was traveling, someone managed to steal all my crypto. It turns out, the wallet had a really difficult time syncing with the Bitcoin full node, and that's something that's not really common knowledge even today, right? That you need to be connected to a full node, and it needs to be live and running and synced up to the latest block. So I freaked out for like a good part of 2 days because of
Right.
that. It turns out the full node being down, my internet connection being too slow to really sync up to the latest block. So things have gotten a lot better since that. But if you are, at the cutting edge of crypto today, interacting with DeFi protocols, doing things like MetaMask, etc., things can still be a lot better. Of course, if you experience crypto on a centralized exchange, or one of the more easier ways to buy crypto, that has vastly improved. What did we have back then? It was Mt. Gox, and we know what happened to that. So I'm glad that centralized exchanges have gotten better.
And I guess when you look at that, do you look at, when we talk about the next, billion, 2 billion, 5 billion users in crypto, is it a user experience problem, or is it a technology problem?
So I think Web3, actually the term Web3 is a very good representation of where we are with this tech. Just like with the web today, there are always going to be people who are going to be running their own servers, writing their own code, launching their own web applications on their own hardware. And we have a lot of that today. But there's going to be a lot of conveniences that are going to be provided, in the next few years, that most people are going to use. And unfortunately, they're not probably going to be custodying their own crypto, but it will let them interact with this, greater decentralized ecosystem. Someone who's been working, in the industry for 7 years, it's not what we hoped it would be, right? We obviously would expect everyone to hold their own keys, have their own cold wallets and hot wallets and such, but it is really hard to use. And I talk to people on an everyday basis, and if we really want them to get into crypto, they should probably take one of the more accessible ways of doing so, and not have a panic attack when they their full node isn't syncing up to the latest height of the plain chain that they're dealing with.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's had that panic somewhere along the lines, and then you just like go to the blockchain explorer. You're like, okay, it's there. It's the user error.
Yeah.
That's usually what it is. It is interesting to think about how long, it's not like user experience, in general was not good, a couple of years ago across a lot of like the Web 2 apps, and like using Airbnb or using some of these apps has always been like really good for many years. But there's almost this kind of inherent like avoidance from people in the space, because it is, not your keys, not your coins type mentality. And so it's kind of taken longer to get there, because the nuance of the experience needs to be better, because you want to stay as true to the space as you possibly can, but also create and maximize the experience for the user. But it's like, it's almost like there's two forces working against each other. Do you feel that same way?
I think they're two forces, but they're working together in a lot of ways. They reach conflicts. Very often, there's always going to be the developers who care more about the tech, and ensuring that everyone has equal access to the tech, and full sovereignty over their tokens, etc. But you have the designers on the other end, having to make compromises because, the goal is to get everyone using crypto. It's not to limit it to a certain number of people who can understand it.
I think the hard thing, bringing that back to the user experience side, it's like some people are really good at design. They can make a really beautiful interface, but in crypto, there's so much data and there's so many numbers and there's so much to understand and grasp the first time. It seems like a lot of things break down at like the system design level, where it's like one
Exactly.
thing relating to another, your product ecosystem all gelling with the brand and all of that. And I'm just curious, like you just went through this rebrand and from Tendermint to Ignite. And I look at that as like the tip of the spear, like, and then you have all of everything underneath it. I guess tell us what that was like. Why did you rebrand? What's behind the name Ignite? Tell us more about that.
Yep. So we did a rebrand. The primary purpose, right, is to focus more on building products and focus more on bringing more users onto crypto. So Tendermint is fairly well known if you're into crypto. It's not a blockchain, but instead it's a protocol. It's a proof of stake consensus protocol, and really the first most widely used proof of stake consensus protocol. So brief refresher on proof of stake, right? Compared to proof of work, it's much more environmentally friendly, right? We did some calculations and compared to things, projects like Ethereum or Bitcoin currently, proof of stake blockchains are about 100,000 times as efficient in energy use. So it's great. And, a lot of chains today use proof of stake. Many of them, in fact, the majority of them use Tendermint Core or a variant of this consensus protocol, which was invented by our founder, Jae Kwon. And many of them, many other projects use Tendermint influence protocols. So it's had a huge impact in the industry, but it's never been a consumer-friendly name. Because the protocol itself, right, is really only interesting to engineers and protocol developers and protocol designers. Making that name, something of a household name is not really something we want to do. We want to ensure that the Tendermint product itself, is always going to be geared towards developers, engineers, and protocol devs. But we wanted to have another name, a more mainstream-friendly name that explains a little bit more of what we're doing today as a company.
And you mentioned consumer friendly. Is that something that are you hoping that consumers latch on to the Ignite brand, or is there like I guess, how do you see that expanding into different engineers using?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
consumer friendly is not really a word that people care about. It sounds boring, but the idea is the products that we're building today, right, are still focused on what I originally wanted when I joined the crypto industry, which is to improve the ease of access, democratize the access of this tech that we all have, and to do it in a way that doesn't result in a centralized exchange custodying all your assets. It's a delicate balance. It's full of compromises, but at the same time, it's very rewarding, right? To make sort of the best possible way and the easiest possible way for people to access their crypto and secure their crypto. But beyond that, that's one half of Ignite, and the other half of Ignite is helping people build sovereign blockchains, which generally hasn't been a focus even today.
And maybe you can just go into that a little bit deeper when you say build sovereign blockchains, because there's a big difference there between that and, say building a token on top of another blockchain versus multiple like sovereign blockchains that can speak to each other and are interoperable, right? Like that's like it's a novel difference that I think a lot of people in the industry are just overlooking.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's because when you search, Google for blockchain development, you're going to get one of two different types of results, right? The first type is likely going to be enterprise blockchain solutions, where you need the advice of this company, to help your business build, probably a private proof of authority type blockchain.
Yeah.
And then the other type of search results you're going to get is probably people teaching you how to build a smart contract on Ethereum, right? That's generally the sort of results that you get. So It's still a little bit out there for most people, but I can give you some numbers from the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah.
So first, a little bit of background on Cosmos, right? And the relationship between Ignite and Cosmos. Ignite, roughly 8 years ago when we were Tendermint, we started building this proof of stake consensus protocol. And we started doing the same thing as other people who built blockchain software tried to do back then, which was to sell our product, to sell the consensus protocol to enterprise. And in fact, I spent, I think, a year, maybe 2 years building an interface just for, enterprise management of blockchains. Unfortunately, we didn't get any customers because it was too early. Maybe if we did it now, we'd get more customers. But that failed, and we decided, hey, how about we make a public blockchain ourselves? And so we didn't do it, but a foundation was created, with some of the same people, and that was the Interchain Foundation, and that really kickstarted the growth of the Cosmos ecosystem. So what made the Cosmos ecosystem unique back then is the same as what makes it unique today, which is the idea of a permissionless network of interconnected blockchains. And some funding was raised. I think about $17 million was raised in 2017 to focus on core development of the software needed to build a blockchain SDK. And, fast forward to 2022, this SDK is called the Cosmos SDK. It's modular. It's used by quite a number of projects. We've been keeping track. There've been over 200 projects that use the SDK, and over 43 projects live today that are actually connected to each other. So you can think of early 2022 for Cosmos as, almost like the beginnings of the World Wide Web, right? When there were only, let's say, 43 websites in existence. That's where Cosmos is today, with many more in development. So this tech, clearly has proven to be useful. Projects like Binance Chain, Terra, the Cosmos Hub, Osmosis, Secret Network, many others of these 40 plus blockchains use the Cosmos SDK to great success. But it's open source, right? It's open source. Apache 2, people have built $1 billion blockchains off of the software, but it's still not easy enough to use by most people. So that's what I mean by helping people build sovereign blockchains. We want to take this Cosmos SDK, improve the usability of it for developers, improve the documentation, make it easier for developers to build a new chain. And the goal is to make building a new chain as easy as launching a smart contract on a smart contract platform.
So on that note, helping those developers kind of expand their horizons and getting more adoption of your SDK, what kind of team does that take? What kind of team? And I'm so curious, it sounds like every company we talk to or every project in crypto has challenges with hiring. And so how do you approach staffing your team to meet those challenges?
Yeah, staffing is difficult, and we have a slightly different mission to most other projects out there, right? Most projects, right, are out there building their blockchain, and generally you're going to get tokens out of it for launching this chain, and it's all about focusing on building one product. But here at Ignite, we focus on helping people do that, if that makes sense. So we have several blockchains in-house that we're building, several blockchains that we're incubating, which is arm's length away, that we're also helping. And then there's a great number of projects that we're investing into through our Ignite Ventures arm. And we have just a huge variety of things that we're working on at any one time. And that tends to help when it comes to bringing on bright people in the company. Many times, we have several open roles with the same job title, but in different teams. And we actually ask candidates, hey, we got X, Y, and Z products. One's more focused on helping people launch. One's actually launching something. And one is focused on making it easier to connect consumers to these blockchains. What's more your style, right? What do you want to work on? And we bring them in and onboard them. Of course, I think the hardest part of bringing on new people is the initial outreach. And I'm I'm just really thankful of our great recruitment team that's managed to make this possible. When I became CEO roughly 2 years ago, we had about 18 people, and now we're a little bit over 130. So, I haven't interviewed 130 people, but I think, probably over 10,000 hours have gone into interviewing candidates through the course of everyone, on the team, working on bringing more people into the ecosystem.
And what are the most difficult roles to fill?
Let me think here. There's two types of roles in particular that are very difficult to fill. One of which we always have a need for, and I think that's the same for every project. It's going to be engineers, right? Engineers is always hard to find because there's a lot of projects competing for engineering attention and a lot of money out there for engineers, right? They don't have to get a full-time job. They can potentially, just bounce from hackathon to hackathon and, earn quite a lot of money that way. I think, several people on our team did that for some time, and they could have kept doing that, but they decided they like Cosmos tools and they stuck around our ecosystem. So, hiring engineers is hard, but we like to hire more junior engineers, and we want to take the time to educate them and help them learn our stack. Because, whether it's people outside of our company or whether we bring them on full time, all we really want is to have them share the same enthusiasm for open source blockchain technology that we do. So if they want to join us, right, they can join us. And, if they want to build a blockchain later, we might decide to incubate them, which is what we're doing with 2 different projects right now. So we're really proud to see, people learn about what is needed to build a chain and, make a decision to build it themselves and launch it and raise money. So that's been really exciting and fun to watch.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? You said ventures arm, then potentially incubation. Where are these kind of silos, or where are the tracks that people can kind of get involved? And then, what's the difference between a grant or maybe an investment? Are you investing with stablecoin? Are you investing in other native token? Like, how does that all come together?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, we're all focused as a team to bring more people into the ecosystem, whether as end users, crypto enthusiasts, or chain developers. So just focusing on the chain developer portion right here, people can come in and build something in 3 ways, like I mentioned before, right? The investment path, we have Ignite Ventures. We review quite a number of projects every single week, and we decide to invest into a number of projects every single week as well. Generally, projects ask funding directly in fiat, so that tends to be USD. It's rare when people ask for anything other than dollars or US stable coins. So that's generally the case. We did set aside roughly a year ago. So this has only been a year-long experiment, but we set aside $20 million worth of tokens, which is, I think, worth considerably more than that at this point. And we've been investing into a number of Cosmos ecosystem projects and other projects that use Ignite technology. We don't make regular check-ins with investments, right? We generally invest, and then we create a partnership channel, and then we help them along the way if they need some help. But we spend quite a bit more time on our incubator projects. So incubator projects generally are created when an employee in the company, creates a great idea for a new product, and the leadership decides that's worth betting on this person. Help them create a new company from scratch with some initial funding and also the advice and help from every team in the company, right? Whether they need some design help, some marketing support, some engineering support, or help with tokenomics, we make time for them and help them build something of value.
I like how you said there, if someone comes up with a good idea, but then you still said, we'll bet on that person, right? Because at the beginning of those ideas, it's all about, can that person drive that and continue to drive that idea, which, kind of leads us to another topic, which is community, because people are trying to build community around every project, around everything. I mean, how are you guys thinking about community from your side and continue to kind of grow that? And we were kind of talking, it's like, at this point, there's people out there that are just, you don't know everyone. Like, this community is kind of taken on its own shape and form. How are you guys just thinking about continuing to kind of push that community, like in part of this rebrand as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and actually very relevant to what we're doing as a company. So Ignite, right? We used to run marketing for Cosmos up until very recently, and that's because we see community as a thing that can be grown and something that can become independent at the right stage and manages itself. I think that's sort of the greatest sign of success of a community, right? When it's able to run without you. And we're really proud to say that the Cosmos community is doing a great job of that. And in fact, I can't even keep track of how many people are now spreading Cosmos news and sharing the latest tokens and airdrops and products that are launching the Cosmos ecosystem. Extremely proud of what we built. So we're using what we learned, creating the Cosmos ecosystem from scratch, growing it to 350K Twitter followers, and I think hundreds of thousands of token stakers on the Cosmos Hub blockchain. And we're helping people build their own communities. So every community is going to be different. And the unique thing about communities in Cosmos is that every single chain in Cosmos has governance built in onto the chain. And we've seen some really spectacular things come out of this. Many times, these community proposals are like, hey, can we have $10,000 to run an event, right? Or can we have 100,000 to do 3 things or 3 or 4 things over the next 3 months? But then you have community proposals that are more like, hey, these people never got access to their tokens at launch because, their keys were mismanaged by the person who's also managing them. Do we want to give them, $100,000 worth of tokens or not? And those are always quite a bit more contentious. So that's always
gone through. Have those gone through? Some of those were like the
Oh
community.
yeah, some of those have gone through. Yeah.
We saw this the other day on another project. There was like some sort of rug pull on an NFT project, and it was like one of the first things that happened was the community was trying to rally around the people that lost the most and get some money back. It's like what other like communities, like outside of like charitable giving, or like there's an accident or something happens, people try to rally around like a family. Like you don't see that anywhere else in society, in any companies. Like at least, like you see people rallying around Ukraine right now and trying to push money in that direction, but it's like a random rug pull in an NFT project. Like the community is like, we got to help these people. Like, what does that say about the crypto space in general?
I think it shows that the crypto space has a huge amount of advantages and in bringing people together, and in the flexibility and freedom, permissionless freedom, bringing people together from different places around the world, that we have only really begun to see the beginning of what's possible.
I agree with that.
I mean, I've been involved in online communities for quite a long time. I love playing online games and such, but never before have we had the opportunity for people to create these sort of digital native companies, right? These DAOs, these blockchains create real value out of thin air by collaboration and voting on proposals and working together. And it's a whole new world out there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Peng, you mentioned, that when the community runs itself and it's not really your marketing team that's doing all the work, it's a huge sign of success, basically. And I look back even to today's stream here that we're on here, leading up to it. I think we did a promotion yesterday saying, hey, we're going to be on tomorrow. And you had many people in your community just take that over, retweet it with very thoughtful, not just like a retweet, but like very thoughtful comments, a lot of engagement, follow-up posts, reminder posts from your community. And it made me think a lot about, the KPIs that we look at, like how do we evaluate success in this space? And I think it's inarguable that you could say looking at the strength of your community is a very strong KPI that everyone needs to look at. But I guess that, what are some of the things that you look at for success? How do you look at, like, we did this and it went really well?
Yeah. So how do we know when something goes well? Well, there's always, the standard answers of, hey, did this increase revenues for this product? But especially in crypto today, right? There's many instances where you might not see revenue for a long time, or that's just generally just all in the appreciation, the value of your token. But how I see success is really, do we make something that helps people in their day-to-day lives, right? And I think for crypto in general, it's been a resounding yes for a lot of people, lifting people into financial independence in a lot of cases, or giving them a career path they never knew was possible to them, and connecting them to people around the world in a way that, people haven't really ever done before outside, a centralized social media platform. So that's really exciting, cool stuff. Personally, what makes me feel like I've achieved success is, people really enjoy, what we've built, and people enjoy interacting with each other. So that's what I really enjoy seeing. The thing about Cosmos is that it's not all fun and games, right? There's often very big and very contentious governance proposals, and there's often a lot of drama as well. But the amount of engagement that we see around some of these more controversial topics shows the strength of the community. And almost paradoxical thing is that with Cosmos being this internet of blockchains, right, this permissionless way to spin up a new DAO, a new chain, it allows for people to create a new community, a new sub-community if they want to at any point. And but not an insular community. So it's not like creating like a new channel on Telegram or a new group on Discord, but it's more, hey, we're going to be over here, but you can still see us. And in fact, with Cosmos, you can still transfer tokens back and forth between each other. One of the things that we haven't seen yet, which we will see, I believe, soon in Cosmos, are going to be contentious or non-contentious forks, right? So in a lot of ways, airdrops are forks, right? Let's say if you were to do an airdrop to a community and then you left out some of the key contributors, right? That's a fork. But we're going to see a future where, people are going to vote specific things on a very contentious proposal. And if you voted against it, they might decide to spin out, take everyone who voted, create a new chain, issue them the same amount of tokens, and leave out the rest. And that's going to be really interesting to see.
A lot of outcomes there. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, when you think about that, it's like all these DAOs, it's like everyone's kind of like, it's like a reconstitution of like idea. And
it is DAO tech
reconstitute something, and suddenly it's like, hey, these people voted for this thing. This seems to be, these people are going to care about this thing, and they're going to want to continue to build in this direction. We're just going to go this way, right? Where like you can do that.
That's right. I mean, that has been done in the past, right? I mean, Bitcoin's been forked several times. Ethereum has ETC. But the difference with forking in Cosmos is that, you're not isolated on your own, right? The moment you fork Ethereum, the two chains no longer talk to each other, right? ETC is on its own. You can't really swap them unless you go to a centralized exchange that has both ETC and ETH. But with Cosmos, you can fork your chain. You can fork anyone's chain. And you can still send your new token to that chain. You can take that new token and convert it on a DEX to the original token. So it offers a lot of ways for projects and teams to collaborate, if they have, conflicting visions.
So what about, I guess on that same note of interoperability and decentralization, I read something from your site. I will quote it. It says, Ignite represents the change we inspire by connecting everyone to this world of decentralization and interoperability. And those are huge words. Everyone says decentralization and interoperability. And I think back, like, interoperability, if you just look at how much more we've thought about interoperability over the last year versus the year before versus the year before, and it's getting to this point of like it's a requirement, right? It has to work with lots of other things. I guess where are we in terms of decentralization and interoperability as an industry, as a space? Is there just so much more to go? Where do you see things going?
I've seen a lot of great things over the past year, right? As everyone started to talk about the multi-chain future, and the popularity of cross-chain bridges started popping up. I've been really excited to see that, and I think everyone in Cosmos has been elated to see that, because the Cosmos white paper and fundraiser. White paper was launched in 2016. The fundraiser was 2017, and we have people here who have been believing in the idea of interoperability being a core part of cryptocurrency for since they put their own BTC and ETH down for a fundraiser into Cosmos 5 years ago. So I believe Cosmos is at the very forefront of this. And the IBC protocol, which was launched last year, roughly 1 year ago, and now the connection with 43 different blockchains that have nothing to do with each other. They may share some of the same people, but the communities are very different. They have their own governance mechanisms. They have their own token, some of which are on centralized exchanges, some of which are not. I think has shown the value of a really unopinionated chain agnostic protocol like IBC. And yeah, Cosmos is here. It's the biggest cross-chain ecosystem. It doesn't charge you anything to be a part of it. And as Ignite, we're going to help you build that chain if you want. But if you don't want to do so, there's many cross-chain bridges that have come into being that allow you to transfer tokens over to Cosmos and the other way around as well.
And how do you look at the Atom Atom versus the Cosmos ecosystem? How does this all play together?
Yep. So the Cosmos ecosystem originated with the Atom token. The Atom token funds a massive amount of development. I would probably still say over 2/3 of all development in Cosmos is funded by the appreciation of the Atom token. So it has a massive impact. And in fact, like out of the 43 chains connected to Cosmos today, I think about half of them have done airdrops, significant airdrops of up to half of their entire supply to people who hold the Atom token or stake the Atom token, right? So, if you want to dive into the Cosmos ecosystem, the Cosmos Hub and the Atom token is probably the first place you want to start looking. But if you want to, try something a bit more experimental, there are all these other projects out there that you can trade atoms for and dive straight in.
And on that note of I guess the Cosmos ecosystem, there's several different components of that ecosystem. Was reading about Emeris. Sounds really cool. Can you tell us more about that, like cross-chain DeFi?
Yeah. So as I've been mentioning, we've been having quite a number of chains permissionlessly connect to each other over the course of the past year since the launch of IBC. And Emeris was something we started building over a year ago. And what it does is it allows people to custody their own assets, but also explore this Internet of Blockchains in a way that's more similar to a centralized exchange. So it's a non-custodial DeFi platform that you explore, all of these chains connected in the Cosmos ecosystem through IBC, and manage your tokens. A new feature coming very soon is the ability to stake on all of these chains. So that's going to be super exciting. And also it's a way to use multiple DEXs in the Cosmos ecosystem. This feature is also, high on the priority list and will be launching soon.
Peng, where do you see us on, if there was almost like a composability index of, all of these blockchains? It's like, where are we on a 0 to 100? Like, are we even at 1?
I would say no, we're not at 1, right? How many blockchains are there listed on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko? There's
10,000,
tens of thousands, right?
Yeah, it's more than that, yeah.
I know there's a lot of bridges out there right now, but there's probably not more than maybe 50 to 60 chains that can say they interoperate, right? So there is there's multiple Cosmos to Ethereum bridges, and then there's multiple Ethereum bridges to like BSC or Polygon, or Phantom or Arbitrum, right? These sort of different versions of the EVM and Ethereum exist, but 60 something or even 100 chains, right, out of 10,000, maybe we're at 1%. But I think where I see the most growth, right, is not in connecting these chains that exist today, but it's going to be in the permissionless creation of new chains. I think 10,000 is just the beginning. I think we're going to see a world of 1 million blockchains that interoperate.
I couldn't agree more with that. I
The
always
upcoming
say
years
that.
are going to be extremely interesting.
Yeah, I believe that most of the or many of the projects that exist today will probably not exist into the future. Just it's kind of like startup, like 90% of these things are just
That's right.
experiments and they're figuring it out. But I believe that many more will exist into the future than exist today.
Yeah, I see blockchains as digital native corporations or cooperatives or nonprofits, and yes, the majority of them will fail, but also the advantages gained by fully digital corporations is so huge that I think it's the direction that all companies will go into in the future. So how many companies exist today? That's how many companies will exist in blockchain plus X many years of growth from now. And what we're building at Ignite and with Cosmos is going to be a big part of that.
What's interesting about what you guys are talking about is I was, I actually have some notes because I was reading through there was a survey that Crypto.com did the end of last year, and there was 295 million people in the world that own crypto. That was according to their survey. And, I'm sure there's some variance in there. That's probably a very difficult number to calculate, but
Right.
call it 300 million, right? And they're estimating 1 billion people by the end of this year. And then I come back to, yes, but there's 7.9 billion people in the world. So we aren't even close, given even how complex it is today.
Yeah, what is it? It's like about a 1/20th of the world today, according to their estimate.
Yeah.
But also, I would assume a majority of those people are holding their tokens on centralized exchanges, right? Like Coinbase or Binance or Crypto.com.
Yeah, and you could say 1/20th of the people, but probably 5% or less of those people's net worth. Right. So even 1/20th of the people, there's still a small percentage of those 1/20th that even have moved the majority of their assets onto a chain.
And I would warn every one of them that, please be careful with your keys if you're going to go that route. It's really scary to manage. And I'm just hoping that we're going to have the right tools for them to dive in here. It's going to be people who have a hard time with Web2 right now, right? That also want to get into crypto. And I really sympathize with how much terminology, how much domain-specific language you need to get into crypto right now. So I'm hoping we can get that as close to a Web2 experience as possible without losing so much of the value, right, of being your own bank.
Yeah,
it's really pretty amazing when you think about like what does the world look like if 7.9 billion people were not just holders of crypto but using it. It's part of their life, and I'm so curious, like, how do we go from here to there? Are we on the right track, or is there just such a different scale that hasn't even been imagined yet to make that happen? Like,
We've got a lot of scaling pains to go through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people use all sorts of currencies today already, right? My example is always going to be, things like loyalty points with different apps that you have on your phone. It's going to be various forms of crystals and gold that you have in microtransaction based freemium games. People are very much used to all sorts of different types of currencies, and some games might have 20 currencies on their own, and people play these on office breaks during lunch, etc. So as long as we get the user experience there, I think people are going to be there and playing around with this new world.
And as we go there, so it sounds like it just sort of happens. People don't know it's happening, but they're going to be a user of some blockchain, some coin,
That's
some
right.
token.
There's a lot of resistance, I think, from the gaming world. I'm mentioning the gaming world because I love playing games, but there's a lot of gamers who are very much anti-crypto and NFTs. And, unfortunately for them, they're going to have to use it probably no matter what, just because it offers so much value to not use it.
Why do you think that they're resisting it? Is it a little bit of the GameFi stuff that's going on where people aren't playing just for like the pure play, and they're saying,
yeah,
I think, been inundated?
I mean, I see why they're resisting it. Mainstream messaging about NFTs see it as some sort of get rich quick scheme, and
Right.
people don't want the purity of their games diluted by this. A lot of people play games to have fun as well, and they don't want to turn it to a way to show off how much you've earned or made in the real world with some really rare NFTs, right? So I see that as well. But as we've seen with microtransactions entering games, there are a lot of people who want to pay to distinguish themselves, in a virtual world. So there's no getting around that.
That is an interesting cultural thing. There are certain games and areas where people, it's not even about the game, and it's not even about earning in the game, but it's about, hey, I've gone and I've spent $100,000 on this character, and like that's like a braggable aspect, and it's like a wow factor for people in like a game. I mean, that's like a very common thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So if I were running Activision, Blizzard, or Electronic Arts, or even Xbox, I'd be terrified of this crypto space. And I know we'd have innovation teams that are sort of exploring, trying to figure out what to do next. But on the other side, I know that we're a corporation and we have quarterly earnings and we have investors. And I'm terrified because I know that value is going to go to the token and not my bottom line. How do you, I think gaming is a good example of that. But I mean, we're seeing like corporations kind of explore using blockchain in various ways, but it seems like a lot of them are kind of experimenting. How do you see this playing out? Because it's going to be kind of a tug of war between Wall Street and the value of tokens.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. So I do think the momentum is on the side of the game publishers and the game studios. The gaming industry is very big, right? I don't know how it compares to crypto, but they have some very, very talented people on their staff. And, I've seen the current state of crypto games and they're not very good, right? It takes a very different type of person to make a good game compared, someone to make a good, let's say, economic game through crypto. And I think it's going to be much easier for a game designer to implement very well and become very successful with, the first super well implemented crypto element of their game than it is for, an extremely well funded crypto project, to pour $1 billion actually into a game and become successful. That's how I see it. I think the tech is getting to a state where it's easy enough to use and similar enough to, operating the back end for your game, through a centralized database that that's what I'm looking forward to. The first sort of real mainstream implementation, good implementation of NFTs or cryptocurrency into, a AAA game.
Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty interesting future here. I guess when you look at these games and you look at multi chains and you look at where this is all going to converge, like how do you see all these multiple chains moving into the future? Like how do you see that? Like how do you predict this goes in the future with all these chains?
Yep. So now is probably a good time to talk about our incubator projects that will have close ties to this or will benefit from this, or the users of which will benefit from this. So they're not launching at the same time, but we have a project called Crescent that's coming up first. What Crescent is, it's the DEX that's on the Cosmos Hub moving on to a new chain. So that's really only possible in Cosmos. You'll see bits of functionality on a chain reach a point where it's best if it's moved onto a new chain. So that's what Crescent is. It's doing an airdrop of half of its supply to the Atom community. And so why it's important, right? It's a DEX, but it's also a way for game currencies to be traded, right? So what's going to happen, I believe, my prediction, right, is every game will end up having its own blockchain because it doesn't make sense to share block space between games, right? Let's say you're playing a game, let's say you're playing Fortnite, right? You don't want to be paying surge gas fees if someone playing The Sims is buying, a new plastic penguin to put in front of their house, right? What I'm trying to say is, games themselves are just so big and such big databases that they all need their own blockchain. And so the way to exchange, let's say, something from The Sims to something from Fortnite is going to be through a cross-chain exchange. either you can sell your NFT for simoleons on the Sims, right? And you could send the simoleons to a DEX like Crescent and trade those for Fortnite bucks. What are they called? V-Bucks. I'm showing my age here.
Yeah.
But then with those V-Bucks, then you can transfer those to the Fortnite chain and then buy, the latest skin for your favorite character.
So you could start at a higher level or really not start from scratch when you go to a new game. That's kind of interesting. That's interesting.
I think that's
going to
be pretty contentious. Obviously, I think game developers would want to allow you to skip some levels, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of people complaining that it's, now pay to win, right? Because every minute spent is now equated to a number of virtual currency, which doesn't feel good for those people. So maybe it's only cosmetic, right? So it doesn't give you any advantages in the game, but it makes you look amazing.
We're talking about gaming, but it sounds to me like that's no different than like if I had Adobe Creative Suite, right, or Creative Cloud, and I have a subscription there, and I wanted to make it interoperable with some software subscription at Microsoft. It kind of sounds like the same mechanics, and maybe this is where enterprise development has to be thinking as well.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, there's a lot of area of innovation here, right? So another one of our incubator projects called Archway just announced an incentivized testnet yesterday and announced also a successful raise of 21 million. So it offers Rust-based smart contracts. And so what you can do with smart contracts that are cross-chain compatible is, let's say you can issue a subscription to Adobe software, right, as an NFT. And potentially you can buy and sell that with other people who may be trying to sell off their Microsoft Office subscription NFT. And you can see the interplay of value between that. I don't know if, companies will want to allow this, but, creating the secondary market for people to actually sell subscriptions helps our consumers quite a lot. Sometimes you just want to edit a photo, or maybe you want to edit your wedding photos and then you're done with Photoshop, for example, and you can sell the other months off to someone else. And that's really not possible right now.
This is fascinating. I mean, going backwards too.
It's already being done a little bit, but not on chain with like media. So like Hulu and Disney Plus, right? You kind of get full subscriptions, right? Like there's interoperability there. It's like ESPN, like you're getting a lot of these things in media, but it's like, what else could be added to that bundle? What else could be pulled off of that? Could it be kind of a tap and click menu of which subscriptions you want access to? And then kind of like streaming out, you're only paying for what you're watching, right? Versus it's tough because like Web 2, that SaaS model and like the multiples on like a SaaS business versus like an ads business or anything else is so high, right? If you show like 3 to 4 months of like solid growth on like a SaaS model with some stickiness, like you can go out and raise like at 100x, right? Whatever that may be. And so it's like, that's been like the attractive thing. The current landscape for raising money, especially in this space, there's specific people in the space that understand that. But if you went to like a Web 2 investor and you said, hey, we have all this growth in this community and here's what's going on and we're in this space, they're going to be like, what? Right? They don't get it. But if you go talk to like people like yourself or other people in the industry, they're just gravitating towards that. They're like, oh my gosh, there's the value right there.
Yeah, I think like John said earlier, it's going to be a big upset, right, to people who are used to centrally managed and centrally owned businesses. To have a community own a business instead is very different. And they're going to want things that help out consumers, right? Like the ability to have partial subscriptions or to buy and sell subscriptions. And you can see this even becoming part of the way we do governments and licenses and such, right? Storing IDs on chain, storing things like your driver's license on chain, transferring access to just your date of birth, for example, to purchase alcohol. A lot of things are going to be much more streamlined with on-chain credentials.
It still, in my head, it still comes back to all of these companies. It's more of a perspective, because like if they're all selling subscriptions via some sort of token and some sort of decentralized exchange, all of these centralized corporations are used to quarterly earnings. And so ultimately, if they can't report quarterly earnings in token value, that means they have to sell that token, and it creates an unsustainable ecosystem. So I don't know if this means that corporations are replaced with DAOs, or if there's some other entity that gets created. But this is to me the most interesting shift here, because in theory, technically, all this can happen, but psychologically and from a corporate structure where corporations are just built to consume and earn dollars, their native fiat currency, it's sort of like, what happens there? How does this, but yet on the other side, they can sell a whole heck of a lot more subscriptions if they tokenize and make this much more efficient for consumers. So there's going to be a tug of war in a sense, and I'm curious if the old corporations can mentally grasp what's happening to them all around them right now.
Yeah, I mean, some of them will, right? And many of them won't, right? Over the last 20 years, we've seen the growth of these juggernauts, right, in Web 2. And these were not businesses that were around 20 years ago, right? So we're going to see, a similar changing of the guard with Web 3. And I think some of the most adaptive companies will be able to stay up to date. And, some of them will become more and more irrelevant. But, our goal here at Ignite is to help as many people create Web3 businesses as possible. And we're all here to learn together, right? I mean, we're in the very, very early stages. The user experience still sucks at the cutting edge. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Well, one thing we didn't touch on was Starport, which I was checking out thinking, so user experience meets big idea. Like, hey, Starport it's like, hey, you want to build a blockchain, you use this tool. Tell us more about that, because I think that seems to be a really big key to your strategy.
Yeah, so that is most of our strategy. So what we do as a company, right, is we help people launch blockchains, whether internally as company projects or externally through investments, and we put all of our R&D into products like Starport. So Starport is a blockchain scaffolding tool that lets you it adds like superpowers to the Cosmos SDK, right? So instead of doing a lot of the busy work involved in creating a new chain, Starport does it in a few commands, right? Like if you're waving a wand and doing some incantations. If you're familiar with web development, it's similar to web development frameworks like Ruby on Rails, right? Which with also a few commands, you can create a new blog or a new shopping cart or a new X application that's powered by a centralized database. So what we're doing with Starport is similar, but instead of a database, you have a blockchain that powers everything, right? So if you wanted to scaffold a blog with Starport, you could, and it would be a blog powered by a blockchain and governed by a token. If you wanted to create, the next new fundraising platform or the next DEX, or the next DeFi loan protocol, you can do so with Starport. And it uses the exact same technology that that powers all of these Cosmos projects. Cosmos projects total in value, right, of tens of billions of dollars. I think, adding up some of the top projects, over $50 to $60 billion worth of value built on the same tech that you could get for free with Starport. So that's where we're here to help you with. You can use this free tool. We provide as much documentation as possible, but if you need help with further things like marketing support or with tokenomics or potentially help with launching it, then, definitely reach out to us.
Wonderful.
I love it. Yeah, there are some pretty serious juggernauts that are built on top of what you guys are doing. I mean, you look at like what Terra's been doing, and it's pretty amazing.
It's absolutely incredible. They managed to, they use the tool and they've leveraged it, and they've created, probably the largest chain in terms of number of users on, is that true? Maybe it's Binance Chain, or it could be crypto.com. But yeah, all of these projects use the Cosmos SDK, and it's really incredible what they've managed to build with it.
Yep. No, it's huge.
And,
with
Starport, it's really meant to make it so you don't have to be, extremely well funded to launch your own chain, right? Something like Ruby on Rails can be used to build wonderful things with a solo developer. What are built with it? right? I think who mentioned Airbnb? Was it you, John? Like Airbnb was built on Ruby on Rails. Twitter was built with Ruby on Rails originally. So, we're hedging that this tool that we're maintaining and continuing to improve and continue to educate users on will be what's used to build the next juggernauts of Web3.
Yeah. I love that. And that's a great place to kind of start closing out. But I would love to hear just what, the Terras and everything else that's built out there. We've got DeFi, there's NFTs, there's metaverse things, there's all this stuff going on. I mean, what do you want to see built next with what you guys are building?
Yeah. Projects for social good. I think that we've created a lot of value. We, as in the crypto ecosystem, have created a lot of value for a lot of people. And, you can make that earn for you through DeFi, and you can earn more and you get more yield. But, there's lots of real world problems that we can help out with. I've seen lots of support, right, from the crypto community in helping Ukraine through various crypto fundraisers. And that's really the first step. Now we're really well capitalized, or if you're new to the ecosystem, right, you may be well capitalized, but, we can help people. And I would love to see a lot more of that. Ways to raise money via crypto, ways to educate people via crypto, and not just to tell them, how to create a wallet and how to stake tokens, but more than that. And it's really the first time ever we've had so much, capital that can be used in ways to help people around the world, permissionlessly, borderlessly. And I want to see what that can create.
Amazing. It truly is a renaissance of financial, economic, and social good that's happening all at the same time. So congrats on all your success along the way. Appreciate you coming on here. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You can check them out, ignt.com.
ignt.com. Or on Twitter, IGNT_com.
Cool. Thank you, Peng Zhong, CEO of Ignite. John, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'll chat with you all backstage. Thanks, everyone, for listening.